Hey y'all, welcome to No Bribe Foul Presents Blood Bowl Basics, where we get you up to speed on what you need to know to play Blood Bowl. The block dice are one of the basic foundations that give Blood Bowl its identity. We will be going over how to block, what the symbols on the block dice mean, and how many dice to roll. The symbol that shows when you roll the die is called a result. Let's go over what the possibilities are. A skull is an attacker down. This means the player throwing the block has fallen down, will be knocked over in the square they threw the block from, then the opponent will test their armor. A smaller skull with a POW symbol is a both down result. This means both players are knocked over in the squares they are in, and they test each other's armor. There are two of the arrow symbols on the dice, making it the most common result. This is a push. The blocking player pushes the opposing player into one of three squares based on the angle of the block. Both players are left standing. Whenever a player pushes an opposing player back, they may choose to follow up or stay in the same square. The follow-up means you move into the square that the blocked player was in previously. The defender must be pushed into an empty square if possible. If there are no empty squares, then a coach may pick an occupied square, which can cause a chain push, but we won't go over those right now. The next result is a POW symbol with an exclamation point, and is called Defender Stumbles. The blocking player pushes the defending player, decides whether or not to follow up, then the defending player is knocked down and must test against their armor. Defender Down, or the POW as it is commonly called, is the last result. It functions identically to Defender Stumbles, except there's one major difference between the two. Some skills will modify how a coach interacts with the block dice, but I'll just cover the two you will see the most often. The block skill, which is distinct from the block action, makes a player ignore both down results, whether they threw the block or not. The dodge skill gives a defender the option to turn a Defender Stumbles result into a push result instead, avoiding the knockdown. Whenever a player is knocked down, they will be placed prone on the board, meaning on their back, and you will need to test against that player's armor. Armor checks are always rolled by the opponent. Roll 2d6, and if the result is equal to or greater than the opponent's armor value, their armor is broken. Anything less means the player is left prone in that square. If the roll succeeds, their armor is considered broken and an injury roll is made. That is another 2d6 roll, and use the injury chart to determine what happens. A stun result means the player is placed face down instead of on their back, and they will take an extra turn to be able to stand. A KO result means that player is placed in the KO box of their dugout. Between drives, roll for each player in the KO box. For each 4+, that player is moved into the reserve box instead. Finally, the casualty result will lead to rolling on the casualty chart. In a league, the player who caused the casualty will also receive 2 star player points. So a block goes like this. Declare a block action from an unactivated standing player to an adjacent opposing player. Determine how many block dice to use by comparing strength and assists. See the video on assists if you want to learn more about that. If the blocking player's strength is higher than the opponent's, you will roll 2 block dice and pick the result you want from that pool. If the blocking player's strength is more than double of the opponent's strength, then you will roll 3 dice and you'll pick one to be the result. Conversely, if the blocking player's strength is lower than the opponent's, you'll still roll 2 dice, but the opponent gets to pick. The same applies if the opponent's strength is more than double the blocking player's strength, you'll roll 3 dice and the opponent will get to pick the result. If their strength is the same, then you only roll 1 die. Roll the block dice. You may use a team reroll if it's your team turn to reroll all of the dice in the pool. The appropriate player picks a result. That result is applied. If you're having any trouble with the block dice, watch this as many times as you need to and feel free to ask questions in the comments.